I'm Claire Shaeffer. Today I'm going to show you the trims on some of the jackets in my personal collection of Chanel Haute Couture suits and two suits which are pret-a-porter. From Fall-Winter 1957, this is the earliest suit in my collection. It was photographed on the cover of French Elle. It is a traditional tailored suit fabricated in a wool double knit. The only trim is the stunning lion's head buttons. It also has fabric or bound buttonholes, which were typical at the time. These buttonholes were soon replaced by thread and double buttonholes. Designed by Karl Lagerfeld, this is a more recent design. It is a very understated wool suit. The buttonholes are handmade thread buttonholes. The buttons have a gold-colored band around them that reads Chanel Paris. This suit is from the early 1960s. The fabric is a handsome piece-dyed wool. The Chanel double C buttons are the only trim. From the mid-1960s, this jacket is trimmed with two rows of top stitching and red and gold buttons with the double C logo. The top stitching ends at the top of the vent. Fabricated in linen, this spring coat was first top stitched, then an embroidery thread was wrapped around the stitches. On this coat, the top stitching extends to the arm's eye. The double C logo is centered in a circle of rope. Made of wool double cloth, this tailored jacket from 1975 has a fold-over braid trim and double C buttons with green centers encircled by a ring of chain. The cream knit cuff and fabric buttonholes match the blouse fabric. Generally, fabric or bound buttonholes are not used on the Chanel jackets. For this design, the buttonholes are a contrast fabric used as a trim. The fabric selvage is used as a piping on this jacket. The buttons are hand-painted. This printed wool jacket is from the mid-1970s. At first glance, you don't notice the trim, a vertical stripe that was cut off and sewn to the jacket edge. The welt seam at the sleeve center was first top stitched, then hand sewn to the sleeve back. The buttons are probably replacements. From 1961, this jacket is trimmed with self fabric and the silk lining fabric. The corded pipings are handmade individually and sewn on by hand. The silk print is used for the buttons and piping. My suit has a dress. A suit in the collection at the Fine Arts Museum in San Francisco has a blouse made from the silk fabric. This 1960s jacket has a vent but no seam. The tabs are cut from self fabric. The buttons have a wire rim with self fabric at the center. Similar buttons were also used by Schiaparelli. This 1967 jacket has one of the most complex trims I have seen. The points on the end are extensions of the navy stripes at the top and bottom of the trim. This jacket is from 1960. The silk shantung blouse fabric is used for the trim. The silk is bias cut, and there is a miter at the corner. Self fabric covers the buttons with gold-colored buttons at the center. The buttons have a plain weave pattern. This 1967 suit is trimmed with piping cut from the wrong side of the blouse fabric. The piping trim and button loops are cut from the blouse fabric. The buttons have a camellia design. This jacket is trimmed with wide cream double knit to match the blouse. The buttons are probably replacements. This jacket was photographed in Elle in August 1965. It has a false cuff which matches the vest fabric. A matching knit piping trims this jacket. The buttons are red and gold. The fabrics are probably piece dyed. The jacket has a very subtle plaid design. The jacket fabric is a wool double cloth. The trim is a plain wool. The plain cuff lengths were used on several jackets in a larger size for the front openings. This Lagerfeld jacket has a pretty trim made with a narrow braid, which has been embroidered with red yarn. The vent fastens with purchased cording loops. This jacket is from 1964. A narrow wool tubing wraps the edges of the sleeves and jacket. The black buttons are original. This is a Chanel Creations design. Chanel Creations was Chanel's first pret-a-porter line in the late 1970s. Pret-a-porter is the French term for ready-to-wear or off the peg. The cuff is trimmed with top stitching and piping cut from the blouse fabric. The top stitching secures the piping. The buttons have a four-leaf clover design, and the buttonholes are machine-made. This Chanel boutique design has a zipper at the vent. The trim was beaded on a strip of organza. Then it was sewn to the jacket. I'm Claire Shaeffer. Thank you for joining me today.